Hey guys, Tarke here, and today I want to talk about two things. One, what I think the real issue with Delve is now that I've really thought about it and spoken to people about it, and also to let you guys know that there'll be a Baeclast on Saturday coming, where anything I touch on in this video will hopefully expand and discuss, and also if there's anything in this video which you feel like hasn't been mentioned which needs to be discussed, then throw it in the comments and I can throw it onto the topic list for Saturday. So on Saturday I'll be joined by Rise, Octavian, and Grim. And I'll open off with what is the real issue with Delve. So I think Delve is amazing. I thought the last few leagues have been amazing. I preferred Best Road to Incursion, but definitely we're talking like top 5 overall. I fucking love Delve. Love Delve. I think the big issue with Delve, the more that I think about it, the more that I talk to Twitch about it, is because of how big of an expansion Delve is, and it's an expansion, I don't care that it's not. The fact that it's infinite content, and it was sold as infinite content, people took that idea and they went crazy with it. I had a few people in chat who think that Delve is basically Torchlight, and it's like amazing, and they want just Delve. The game will only be Delve. And then you've got guys who, like, their brain glows, like, oh, competitive ladder, pushing, 600 plus, doing crazy group min-max and getting all the bitch boys together. And then you've got people just like, oh, Delve, sick. I'll be, like, power farming fossils at, like, Delve level 1 and making mad bank. And then you've got people just like, cool, Delve, it's a thing I'll do maybe sometimes. And then there's the guys who haven't even touched it at all because they don't like the mechanics or whatever. But because of that, it's incredibly difficult to balance. And it's very difficult to take feedback from anyone, and I imagine even within the team it's very difficult, because even within the team everyone has their own idea of what it should be and how it should be and how punishing it should be and which core part of the game you focus on. And because it's so potentially powerful, the second you push it too far in any one direction, you potentially break Path of Exile. So when I was preparing this document, I was talking to Grimray, and I was kind of like, hey, so, like, this big thing which keeps coming up again and again is sulfite costs in games. And I was like, Grim, what I need you to do is I need you to literally make a list of, like, all the different values. Because he's the person I know who's pushed the furthest directly. So he's been doing, like, 300 solo, and he's been doing group stuff, and he's getting ready to do some pushes. But the main thing that him and his friends, some of his friends, like, pushing ladder hard, have struggled with has been the sulfite costs. And the people who are in the trade leagues doing really crazy sulfite stuff, what they're doing is they're getting like an entire group to feed all the fuel into one character. And there's apparently this really big issue where the sulfite costs are getting so high that the only way that you're able to do anything is if you have groups funneling. So you have that whole side of things, and that's like one really big thing. And then on the other, you have the guy who's kind of like, yeah, it's getting really expensive at like 200. And that's one thing I'm going to really try and do on Baeclast this Saturday is I'm going to try and do my best to keep people on term when it comes to saying deep and shit like that. Because I think that's one of the things when speaking about Delve, I think it's important whenever giving any criticism on Delve to say, like, this is good at this level for what I'm doing. So because when you say sulfite costs are bad, that could be coming from the point of view of someone like, yeah, sulfite costs are bad because I'm having to do this many tier 16 maps to run this many delves. But then one of the big things me and Grim were talking about is like we're breaking down the math, how with delves you have the short delves, and then you have the larger delves, and then you have the really long delves which are worth like 4 times as much sulfite as the short one. So it's because of how large the scope is, and because of how vague people talk about things. You could have 2 people on Reddit or on a YouTube comment going, yeah, man, the costs are too fucking horrible. And the first guy in his head is talking about Delve 100, and the guy agreeing was like, yeah, dude, in his head he's thinking Delve 500. So anyway, I think that's like the core fundamental thing that people struggle with when it comes to talking about Delve, criticizing Delve, GGG addressing Delve is really kind of like, what is it, Because it's not like it's hard to sustain this particular map, or it's hard for this particular build to do this thing. It's like, it's such an encompassing thing, which if you could 100% sustain it, completely breaks mapping, completely breaks everything. But then if this goes core, completely breaks the fundamentals of Path of Exile. But anyway, what are the topics for Baeclast this Saturday? So a brief catch-up of what everyone's been up to. Some initial delve impressions. So as I was saying, I think it's important that we all try and frame where we're coming from. So if we're just like, hi, I'm Tarke, I'm an addict, and I am rank blah 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 at this level in this league. So for the rest of the thing, you know, okay, this guy's talking from the point of view of softcore SSF, softcore trade league, hardcore SSF at this rank, at this level, on this build. I get where he's coming from. Kind of just rank it in comparison to other leagues. It's always just kind of fun when a new league comes out to kind of like rank it where it falls into your favorites. And then kind of go into this thing. One thing I think is very interesting is I'll talk about like realistic expectations of new content. Like for us, where do we draw the line between, okay, it's a new release, it's going to be buggy, this is acceptable amount of bugs, this is scuffed beyond belief, this is like horrible. Talking about community versus GGG design. And then one thing which I know whenever I like, I'm on a particularly like complainy side of things, like this league needs changing, whenever I get that, I always have to ask myself, and people often ask me, Tarke, like the game's fine, you're just burnt out. And I think that's an increasingly common thing now, where it's you have to ask yourself, am I the problem? Like, is burnout the issue here? Or is there actually like a fundamental core game problem which needs to be fixed? And that's always really interesting. Like, should PoE be the game that you play every single day? Because that's what a lot of us want it to be, but is that actually sustainable? Should it be the game which you only play for a month and a half, 2 months of a league, and then you break? Like, that is always interesting. And obviously from streamers, we are in that cycle more so than the average player, so it's interesting to hear what the streamers have to say about it. Talk about the whole character versus account-bound upgrade thing. Going into all of that, some of us are on our second character, some of us are on our first characters. In the case of Rise, some of us are on our 27th character. One thing which I think is very interesting, again, in this whole thing is when this league was initially announced, we spoke about this exact topic on Baeclast, and at the time on Baeclast, we were all like, yeah, this seems amazing, having this slow, punishing, clear progression. This might hopefully fix retention. But now it seems like people kind of want the opposite, and it's been interesting, even just conversations I've had with Rise on his stream through chat, where he originally was very much on one side, and you've kind of watched him go like very like it needs to be character based. Actually, no, it should be account based, and now he's kind of like weaning back the other way. It's interesting kind of seeing how that kind of flows as people get like deeper into the league and start to like get their head around the mechanics. And then a very interesting thing is, will we eventually need another Azerite sync? Since Azerite is now account bound, not character bound, and it was balanced around that, will we need to see an Azerite sync come in? A lot of people saying, you know, we want sulfite upgrades, or maybe a way to turn Azerite into sulfate or whatever. It's just, it's an interesting thing to talk about and look forward to, since obviously we're only 1 week into a league, and I've seen some people are like starting to cap out some of their stuff. So, you know, it's like, oh shit, what are you going to do now with all of this resource that you'll just be left with? Sulfite gains, costs, and gains. That's kind of what we talked about earlier. Like, should it be scaled up? Is it fine as is? How do we approach it so that it feels good at the bottom end and then feel good for Grim? So, like, to give a good example, so Grim's like, he was saying, dude, it's horrible. Like, I'm sustaining tier 16s. Tier 16s are so cheap now. With Zana, I'm just spamming Guardian maps, but I'm doing all of these maps and getting barely any delves out of it. And I'm like tier 12, tier 13 maps in SSF right now, and I'm floating like low 100s, I think, on my occultist right now. Something like that. And I'm like, dude, it's fine. But obviously, we're in a completely different wavelength. His delve costs like 8 times more than mine does. So I'm like, dude, what's the issue? And it's like, oh shit, no, that seems fucked. And then getting into the whole fossils. So the last few days, there's been all this buzz around like, which is the route to take? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it Minesweeper? A lot of people have been really getting into the whole fossil crafting stuff, and we've all like taken our own different approach to it. So, you know, Octavian, his whole build was around like, I'm just stacking global damage reduction. I can just stand in the darkness forever. So he's just like, you know, casually strolling about, picking things up willy and nilly. Who cares? Rise is meanwhile just Sudokuing character after character and character to get some fossil to make a bow for him to rip the next day. Grimro's actually looking at it from like an economy point of view, and I'm just sort of gulling about with my ever failing attempts to craft good ES gear with the dense mod, I think it is, which would make sense. I'd be stacking the dense fossils, but anyway. Then talk about the whole group side of things. So Grimro's done a lot of grouping. So it's going to be Grim and Octavian talking on this bit. Obviously, me and Rise, SSF, by the way, haven't really done any grouping stuff. But I feel like it's something which should be addressed because there seems to be some very serious issues with grouping. And then going from that, talk about the new Zana thing, because Zana is either the best thing or the worst thing ever, depending on how you feel. I think it's fucking amazing. But there is maybe some potential problems with how it might be going the way of Harbinger. Like, you know how in Harby the map prices for the higher tiers was scuffed? It looks like that might happen for Zana, but for SSF, it is so good so far. Now, obviously, we're not talking too much about builds and skills. We're kind of talking more about the core fundamental, like, delve mechanics. I'd rather save build and skill stuff for the next Baeclast. So 2 weeks from the one on Saturday. The reason I want to wait for that is we're still expecting some early hot fixes. GGG has said they want to like buff Scourge area, for example. And also it always takes people, a couple of weeks to kind of really sink into the new meta, work out what the new items or crafting is in the case of fossils. And also, like a really good example, I really wanted to get MP on. MP really pushed Greater Rifts in depth. I was really hyped to get him on for this, but he hasn't done his like crazy push yet. So I'm hoping for the next one, when he's got his full insane like group party going and just dominating the ladder, we can then get him on and really talk about this like very interesting group meta and how the builds are kind of working off each other. So build related stuff, that'll be more related for the next Baeclast. This one's more about like core fundamental delve mechanics. If you think there's anything important which I need to add on to this, then just tell me. If you think there's anything on here which is like, why are we talking about that? Mention it. But yes, so once again, that will be Saturday coming with myself, Rise, Ratman, how do you want to say it, Octavian, Grimro, twitch.tv/TarkeCat. I'm tired, as you can probably tell by my nature. Have a good day. Bye-bye.